Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Live with me, Dr. Jen. Yes, we are going to be having another insightful session here today. And we're tackling a very, very intriguing topic because usually, sometimes the things we ignore are actually the things that affect us the most. There are some small things that we have the tendency to ignore, particularly during the back to school period, that have the potential to impact not just how our kids learn, but also the amount of struggle that we experience as parents. I hope that you are doing well. I know it's been a while since we had our usual Thursday live sessions, but they are back. Yes, I was on a break. I took a break to refuel, and to re-strategize, and we are back on track. I hope that you missed me. It's been a while since we had our usual Thursday live sessions. Let me see you in the comments. Where are you joining me from? Are you joining in from any of the Purposeful Parenting forums? Is this your first time? Thank you for tuning in. Please invite someone else to join in today's session. We are going to be talking about some, seemingly impact how our children learn. They look small, they look unimportant, but they do have a big impact on our children's learning at school or in the classroom and on their overall performance. So once again, you're welcome. I hope that you are going to remember that you can always ask questions, right? During the session, you send in any questions you have as we go, because if you wait till the very end, you might not be able to get your questions to upload on time for me to see them and answer them. So if you have any questions as we go along, drop them in the comments and I will get to them either at the end of the session, or if I can take them during the session, I'm going to do so. Now, remember, I said that small choices at home can actually make big differences in school. The choices you make at home, right? Home and school are very much connected. But sometimes we tend to dissociate the two. We tend not to look at them as two things that are connected, right? We tend not to relate the fact that when there's always chaos at home in the morning, it affects how your child learns in class during the day. When what your kids are taking from home to school to eat during the snack time can affect how they learn in school. And even the activities you have in your home between the periods of after school to bedtime do have a huge impact on what happens with your child in the classroom. So the hours between after school and bedtime are not just periods when you just let everything go as it comes, but you have to be intentional about the activities that you schedule between the time your child leaves school to when they go to bed, because it will impact not just the next morning, right? It will impact how they learn at school or how they are able to learn in the classroom. So let me ask you, where do you struggle the most? Is it with waking them up in the morning? Is it with getting them to go to bed at night? Where do you struggle the most? Now, I have so many parents reaching out to me asking, oh, the kids go to bed on time, but it takes them 2-3 hours to fall asleep and they wake up in the morning tired. It's usually so difficult to wake them up in the morning. So you see that what happens after school will also affect what happens in your home in the morning. The struggle that you have with waking your kids up at night is very much connected to what happened in your home from the time they return from school to when they went to bed. It's very much connected. I'm going to look at that during this session. So whether it's play, whether they are playing or they're having homework or they're having screen time, all the activities that are usually common during this period have an impact. They have an impact on your child's memory. They have an impact on their level of focus. They have an impact on their attitude, on their mood. Yes, learning also has an emotional component. How emotionally stable your child is affects how they learn, affects how they participate in class, affects their ability to focus while in class. So what's happening in your home is either priming your child to learn better, or is slowly eroding their capacity either to retain information or to focus in class or even to engage in class. So this session will help you to be able to move from, just scheduling what we usually schedule. Remember, I said that, most parents, when a child starts declining in their performance in school, they quickly just jump to the usual solutions, right? Let's give them extra lessons. Let's make sure they are sleeping earlier. When the child is not waking up in the morning, the obvious solution is always let them sleep earlier. But then I'm sure you'll agree with me that many times they go to bed earlier, like you planned, but they don't fall asleep. So, what then is the problem? What's happening within this period after school that is causing all of these struggles, whether it's the bedtime struggle or it's the waking up time in the morning struggle? All right. So, what's happening in that period? That is a critical window. The time your child leaves school and when they go to bed, it's a critical window. We're going to look at the critical things that actually affect not just how they wake up in the morning, but whether they're able to fall asleep and get enough sleep. We know that sleep is important, right? So many parents even force their kids to have siesta in the afternoon and then send them off to bed again early in the evenings, just because you know that the child needs to get enough sleep. And then lo and behold, in the morning, there you are struggling to wake up, your child for school and they are not waking up. It's a whole nightmare. Our parents will tell me it takes them up to an hour just to get their child to wake up in the morning to begin the morning routine. Imagine losing 1 hour of the time that you have to prepare to get your kids ready for school. That can cause a lot of stress. All right. So let me hear from you in the comments. Where do you struggle? Which struggles do you have to battle with during the school period? Is it getting them to bed at night? Is it getting them to fall asleep once they are in bed? Or is it waking them up in the morning? All right. Is it waking them up in the morning? Which one? Where do you struggle the most? Getting them to bed at night, getting them to fall asleep, waking them up in the morning. And which after school moment is most chaotic? Is it the homework time, getting them to do homework? Is it getting them to turn off the TV if the TV was on? What are your biggest struggles during that after school period? Let me hear from you in the comments. Now, have you had remarks from school that your child was sleeping in class? Have you had such remarks from your child's teacher? If you're in close contact with your child's teacher, sometimes teachers will reach out to tell you your child is always sleeping in class, or your child's performance is declining, or your child does not focus in class. Which of these issues have you encountered? I'd like to hear from you in the comments. Now, let's look at I have 5 things that I want us to address in this session. 5 things that are often overlooked, 5 things that are often underestimated, often, just simplified, overly simplified. Meanwhile, they contribute significantly to these struggles that you might be encountering during this critical window period, which is the after school period, right, to when they go to bed. So, what are these 5 things? The very first thing, for those who have been with me for a while, you will know I'm sure you can already guess what the very first thing is. The very first thing that many parents simplify, overlook, is outdoor play during school time. Now, many parents think that play is the enemy of learning. On the contrary, play is a vehicle for learning for children. When you associate learning, when you associate whatever you want to teach your child, when you pass it through the vehicle of play, it goes through faster. But besides that, even just the usual play activities that we think are useless, right? Running around, chasing each other, climbing stuff, jumping around, kicking the ball. Many parents think that it's useless. That's what's making the child not to do well at school. On the contrary, outdoor play, not just play, but playing outside, has a very, very big impact, not just on how your child is able to sleep properly at night, but also, in the ability to emotionally be released emotionally, right? Relieve their stress. Remember, I've said that learning has an emotional component. A child who has built up anxiety, built up stress gets in the way of learning. And school can be very stressful, especially for us here in the African setting, where most of the classrooms are emotionally unsafe, right? There's so much aggression, so much violence. Children are being punished, for not getting stuff right. There's a lot of tension in the classroom. So many kids are under these conditions for about 8 hours. They come home and they meet the same conditions. So that emotional safety, that environment can actually help your child learn better. So when your child gets the chance to play outside, they release some steam. All right, it gets them to relax. It gets them to de-stress. It releases their anxiety. But guess what? Outdoor play also gets your child to spend their energy. All right, it gets them to spend their energy. Now, take for example a child. One of the issues I have parents reaching out to me about is children who are in the nursery section. All right. The child comes back from school, doesn't want to take a nap, and won't go to bed on time, goes to bed very late because they couldn't go to bed at the time you send them to bed, and then can't wake up again in the morning. Now, usually kids in the nursery section would take a nap in school, but many parents don't collaborate with the school enough to get to find out whether did my child have a nap in school today, because that's important. If your child already had their nap at school, they won't be able to nap after school. But for some parents, it's just so robotic, right? The child comes back, you must take your nap, go and sleep, and you have the child in the room for 2 hours. Eventually, the child falls asleep again. Of course, that child will have difficulties falling asleep at night. And then on top of that, the child did not have avenues to spend their energy. So outdoor play actually helps children be able to spend their excess energy, but also just the sunlight, being outside releases endorphins. It helps your child. It helps to prepare the brain to be able to shut down at night, right? There's research that proves that when you go out in the sun, it helps you get better sleep at night. So kids who have that outdoor playtime have no trouble falling asleep at night. We're going to look at other factors that get in the way of kids falling asleep. So going to bed is one thing, but falling asleep is another. And then you have the child sleeping, maybe they went to bed at 8 and they fall asleep at midnight. That's 4 hours. They're in the room playing, they're in the room making noise, and you're getting upset, you're getting frustrated, but the child can't fall asleep. Now, so many schools today, here in the African setting, or maybe let me just talk about Cameroon. So many schools today are beginning to make break time optional. All right, kids don't get enough time to play in school, and there's some kids. Some days they go to school, they don't get to go outside, and then they come home. It's the same thing. So you can have a child who goes for an entire week without having had time to be out there in the sun, just playing and exploring the environment. It contributes significantly to quality sleep at night. It helps with learning because when your child is out there, they learn so much. Don't look at play as a waste of time. For a child, it is a significant vehicle for learning, it's a significant complement to learning. So, outdoor play. But besides outdoor play, there are other kinds of play that your child should be able to engage in during school time, like during the after school period, right? A, Intellectual games, things that will help consolidate memory, things that will help your child to strengthen their memory capacity, things like puzzles. There are other logic games that you can engage your kids with. So play should not be taken away because school is going on. Because if you're talking about children, they need play. It's not something that is optional. It is a necessity for them. In my home, outdoor play is not something that we deliberate with. All right, we make room for it every day for our kids. They go out there to play. We don't struggle with them falling asleep at night. That is one area I do not struggle with. They don't struggle with falling asleep at night because once they spend the energy, usually it's 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes. They get to go out there, play football, run around, chase each other. By the time they come back in the evening, have their bath, proceed with the rest of the activities for the evening. By the time it's bedtime, they're the ones telling mama we want to go to bed. And they get to bed, 5 minutes, the room is quiet, everybody's asleep. And they wake up in the morning, they're refreshed. Why? Because they went to bed on time, they actually fell asleep, and they're able to get the amount of, because when it comes to sleep, right, we'll look at that as we get to the next point. When it comes to sleep, it's not just about getting into bed. We're going to look at why quality sleep is much more important than just quantity sleep. Because sometimes kids go there and they just have quantity sleep, but it's not quality. It doesn't impact the areas that it should impact while the child is sleeping. So try to, in your routine, your child's routine, no matter how small, it could just be just 30 minutes. Let your child get some air outside. Let your child have some time to play. Now, there are some parents who live in areas where outdoor play is not possible, right? If you're living in an urban jungle where maybe you're living in an apartment building that's just beside the road, it's dangerous for kids to go outside, there's no one to go with them. You have to make room for your kids to play, even if it's in a confined space. But that playing is important. It contributes to good sleep at night. All right, and it helps your child distress. It helps your child wind down. That winding down helps the child shut down at night as well and rest properly. So build a small routine where your child could maybe come back from school. It depends. Now, different homes, different scenarios, or different sequence of activities. Your child could come back from school, have what, 31 hour outdoor play, depends, all right? Have their bath, have a snack, have time to, wind down and study. They could have their study time. And then you could get chores in there and all of those things. Now, some parents also make the mistake of taking away chores in the name of school is very stressful, without realizing that chores are a complement to classroom learning as well. It's very important. Chores are not punishment. It's an avenue for skill development, vital skill development, principally executive function. What's executive function? Now, when a child has to take an exam, for example, all right, they have to learn to manage time, they have to learn to follow instructions, they have to learn to start and finish. That's all of those things define executive function. They have to be able to remember what they were asked to do and how they're supposed to execute. All right, all those skills, and they're not just learned by sitting down. When you think about how chores work, right? You give a child a task, the child has to start the task, the child has to plan. Okay, when I want to wash the dish, I'll wash the spoons first, wash the plates next, wash the pots. That is executive function. The child is planning out an activity for how they're going to execute it. Many parents don't see that that activity right there supports what happens in the classroom as well. Chores are not punishment. If you can have, and this is what structure is all about. That's why structure is very crucial for effective learning in school. Structure at home. When the home is chaotic, it impacts learning negatively. You have a child who always gets to school anxious in the morning and struggles throughout the day with their lessons because they left home unsettled. We'll look at that as we go ahead. All right. So, note whether homework takes less time. There are some days when kids don't have homework. So, you have to try to find a balance, but find a way to get play in there, mindful of the fact that it helps, it contributes to learn, it contributes positively to learning when you build structure around play, meaning that it should not just be random. The reason why many parents complain about play or look at play as the enemy is because the play lacks structure. It lacks thoughtfulness. All right. You just say, go and play. There is no plan. There is no thought put into it. What are they going to be engaging with? All right. Are they playing outdoors? Are they playing indoors? How much time should be allocated for that? What happens after the play? That's what structure does. It helps you think through all of these things. If you haven't gotten a copy of my structure guide, please do. But most importantly, if you really want to learn how to build structure, then sign up for any one of the courses that we're offering at the Purpose of Parenting Academy. You're going to learn about structure and how to really pick and select the activities that will complement the training, that will help you instill the values that you want to instill in your children. Now, the second thing that parents often overlook is sleep and rest. I'm sure you're like, oh, of course I don't overlook that. I get my kids to go to bed on time. I get them to take a nap. Of course I'm paying attention to sleep. So not in that sense, actually. Now, many parents don't understand that sleep is all about you're getting a need met. As children grow from one age group to the next, their sleep needs change. That's why you're probably struggling with your child who's in class 5, class 6, or class 4. You struggle with them when it comes to siesta because they don't want to sleep. You force, you shout, some even beat, they force the child. The child goes there now, sleeps for maybe 2 hours, and then at night, can't fall asleep. Now, as children grow, I think from 4 to 5 and above, most of their sleep needs are met at night. If they go to bed, let's say at 10 and wake up at 6, they've had about 8 hours of sleep. For the younger ones, they need about 10 hours. Nursery school kids usually need about 10 hours of sleep. Kids, I think below 1 year, 1 to 2 years need about 12 hours. I may have mixed the numbers a little bit. But bigger kids can get their sleep needs met usually while sleeping at night. Now, what does this mean? Sleep and rest it must not always be siesta. Your child can rest after school, and that's okay. They must not sleep, right? For them to get the benefit that comes, for them to get the rest they need. Because if you have your child who has lesser sleep needs, sleeping for long hours during the day, they will struggle to fall asleep at night. And that will affect how they wake up in the morning and then affect the rest of the day at school. So, but here's the thing with sleep. When your child doesn't get enough sleep, particularly at night, all right, The sleep that happens at night is the most important. Why? Because the number of hours a child gets to sleep at night, usually at least 8 hours, right? That's the minimum requirement, 8 hours. This gives time for the brain to do some repair work, but for their memory to be strengthened. This means that if your child is really sleeping too much during the day, and then at night they struggle to sleep, and then they end up having maybe 6 hours, it interferes with the processes that have to be occurring at night while they're sleeping to help prepare their memory, prepare their mind to study the next day. All right. So deep and consistent sleep consolidates memory. So what happens when a child is sleeping, that deep sleep at night? Why it's so important to memory is because while the child is sleeping, information gets moved from one part of the brain and gets stored to the longer term memory, helping the child be able to remember it for longer. There are some kids who struggle with memory and the parents don't realize, they think the child is dull. They don't realize that it's probably it's affected by the quality and the quantity of sleep the child is getting at night. That nighttime sleep is the most important. So instead of pressuring your kids during the daytime, bigger kids who don't want to sleep, you're always pressuring them to to go to sleep, to go and take a nap. The child gets there, struggles, finally sleeps off, and then at night begins to struggle and can't get the number of hours they need. It's not really helpful because the sleep during the daytime gets interrupted. It doesn't go deep enough for the brain to do the repairs that it has to do and for the memory to be consolidated the way it needs to be consolidated. All right. So insisting on a nap for all children after school, especially older kids, can end up working against them instead of for them. So if the child doesn't want to sleep, the child is not tired, you can have them just have what we call quiet time. Quiet time, all right, where they can read a book, they can build a puzzle, just something to help them wind down. They can color, they can draw, just to rest. Just it could be 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be so much time. It could be 30 minutes just to get them to settle down after school. So young children forced into long naps will have trouble sleeping later. So it's important to be aware of the number of hours of sleep that your child needs per 24 hours. Your focus now should be getting them getting those needs met instead of just allowing your child to sleep randomly. That's why, again, structure is helpful because it helps you plan and get your child's needs met as they should be. A child in nursery school needs about 10 hours of sleep. That means that if they have a 1 hour nap, they go to bed at 9, wake up at 6, they've had their sleep needs met. All right. So if your child is struggling with sleep after school in nursery section, always check with the teacher. Did my child have a nap at school today? If they had a nap, then that's good. That's done. You now focus on getting them to bed in the evening and night. And then when you add the outdoor play and other stuff, you said the child is able to spend their energy. When it's bedtime, your child will fall asleep. All right, your child will fall asleep. Now I'm going to look at other factors that also negatively impact sleep that can keep a child from getting the number of hours they need at night. So usually primary school kids have 8 hours is about enough. I think kids above 6, I'm not mistaken. 6 and above is 8 hours. They have entered the 8 hour gap. I think 6 to 4, 6 and below should be 10 hours. Nursery school kids should be between 10 and 12 hours. All right, I'll check on the numbers. But bigger kids, 8 hours is fine, meaning that a good night's rest is enough. A good night's rest is enough. So match your child's rest or sleep to their age. All right, and usually your child, there are days when kids are extra exhausted. There are days when you're not even asking to go to bed. They'll go and have a nap. Sometimes during quiet time, my kids fall asleep. So it depends on the child's body. Usually will tell them what they need. Sometimes they are extremely exhausted and they do need a nap, but not every day. So it should not be something that is obligatory. You must sleep. And then you wonder why your child struggles at night, particularly for bigger kids. For younger kids, they do need the nap. The younger kids need the nap, but you just need to inquire whether they had their nap at school before insisting or trying to force them to sleep. So establishing a consistent bedtime routine with a predictable wind down. Now let's talk about quality of sleep. Remember I've said that it's not just about having your child sleep, but the quality of the sleep. The first component of quality is the number of hours according to what is needed for that age group. All right. The child above 6, 8 hours, meaning that if they go to bed at 10, they should be up by 6. That's 8 hours. That's good. They've had a good night's rest. All right. Now, if they go to bed at 9, Most kids wake up at 5:30. That's okay. All right. Now, in the course of the day, I'm sorry, at bedtime, you also have to look at what are the things that could be taking away from the quality of sleep my child is getting. There are some kids who sleep with the lights on. There are some kids who sleep, and there's a lot of noise. Maybe they put on something is playing in the background. All of those things affect the quality of sleep. So your child will be asleep, but they are not resting. All right. I had a parent reach out to me recently. She tells me, "Oh, my kids go to bed on time, but they wake up every morning very tired. I don't understand what's happening." And I asked, "Do they sleep with the lights on?" Um, no, the lights are off, but I think there is the light on the outside of the house that is coming into the room. It's bright. You know how when you have light outside of the room that is streaming in through the windows and it falls on the kids' bed. So there is light coming in. Kids need, for quality sleep, needs a dark room. So the room has to be dark. It has to be quiet. That helps the brain really shut down and do the repairs that needs to be done. Okay, so if a child resists sleep in the afternoon or during the nap time, replace it with calming down activities, reading, drawing, or just have my kids sometimes just laying there, maybe building a puzzle, doing something, because those quiet activities can actually get the child to fall asleep if they really need it. They're going to eventually fall asleep. So I don't force nap time in my home for the bigger kids. All right. So track your child's morning alertness. How do they wake up in the morning? Do they wake up in the morning with so much struggle? There's so much crying. They're still falling asleep during breakfast. That tells you that the sleep at night was not either sufficient or was not of good quality. All right, it was not a good quality. So what could making my child quiet? Is the mattress comfortable? Is the room dark enough? Is it quiet enough? Do they go there and spend the time chit chatting? Do they have difficulties falling asleep? And all of those things. Now, the third thing I want to address, because it affects sleep, is screen use. Screen use is one of those things that parents overlook when it comes to school performance. They don't think that there is a connection between the screen use at home and the learning at school, but there is a huge and very significant connection. There is a huge and very significant connection because now screens are primarily responsible for most of the focus issues that kids today have. The lack of focus, difficulties with concentration, and is mostly due to the screen issue, how the screens are being used at home. Now, let me start by talking with how the screens affect sleep. One of the things that parents overlook is the timing of screen use, not even just the amount of time the child is spending with the screen, but also the timing when the screen is used during a school week. Personally, in my home, we don't have screen time during the school week. There are no screens at all. All right, except occasionally on Wednesday when they have their half, because Wednesday here where my kids' school is half day, they close earlier than every other day of the week. So on those days, sometimes we would have like 30 minutes targeted screen time to learn something, and that's it. But during the week, usually there's no screen time. All right. Now, so it's not just about how much of the screen they're using, but when. In most homes, kids go from they do everything, then end their evening with the screen, and then they go to bed. Research has shown that screens emit something called blue light, and that blue light contradicts the processes that help you fall asleep. All right, so using the screen just before bed can be responsible for the difficulties your child is facing falling asleep at night. So it's best to keep this. If you have to have screens, they have to have screens during a school night. It should be at least turned off 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. All right, and replaced with some other relaxing activity. It could be a bath, it could be story time, it could be, something else that is relaxing. But get them off the screen just before bedtime because it negatively impacts their ability to fall asleep. And sometimes, even what the kids are watching can cause your child to have several nightmares. There are kids who have difficulty sleeping because they keep having nightmares. And that's related to what probably they're watching before they go to sleep. So, screen use just before bed impairs your child's ability to fall asleep. It affects their ability to fall asleep. And it can also affect the quality of their sleep at night. So most people don't see that connection. They just keep focusing on, oh, they said 1 hour, so 1 hour. But the child is watching their 1 hour of screen time just before they go to bed. Prayer time, yeah. Anything but the screen just before bed. Anything else but the screen. All right. Anything else but the screen. Screen time just before bed is detrimental for how your child falls asleep and even the quality of their sleep. So you want to move that away, shift it further away from, bedtime, or if possible, take it away completely during the school week. But if you can't, then 1 hour, all right? 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatever, according to your own home needs. You want to keep it further away from bedtime, right? If they go to bed at 8, then by 6, there should be no screens, no access to screens after 6, or let's say 7, at least an hour. And then you replace that with a calming, winding down activity. It could be prayer time. Prayer time usually is short, it's like 15, 30 minutes, except you're having a whole service in your home. But usually it's about 15, 30 minutes. That's not enough. If you just go screen off, prayer time, bed, it's not enough. They need about an hour, at least an hour between screen time and bedtime for it not to have a negative impact on their sleep. All right, so you want to be able to check that. Now, let's talk about the other impact of the screen, which is the focus. Many parents think that, oh, they are watching educative programs, they are watching, they are using learning apps, they are doing maths on the computer, it doesn't matter what they are doing on the computer. All right, because the blue light that the screen is emitting, it doesn't discriminate depending on whether they're watching educative programs or entertaining programs. It doesn't discriminate. It is the blue light that's coming out from the device that has an impact on a substance called melatonin that helps you fall asleep. All right, it inhibits melatonin. It prevents it, from being secreted, which makes it difficult to fall asleep. It makes it difficult to fall asleep. So it doesn't matter what they are watching. Now, on the other hand, the other thing that parents overlook when it comes to screen use during school and school performance is the effect that the screen is having on the child's ability to focus. Learning in the classroom needs focus. Many parents don't usually reach out asking for help with their child's focus when the child is in nursery school, because in nursery school focus is usually not a big issue. It's not even really required, because every 5 minutes they are up, hands down, they are singing, they are clapping, they are dancing, they are playing, they do a lot of movement there. So kids who have focus issues don't stand out in that at that level of the academic ladder. As soon as they get to class 1, that's when you have them reaching out. Oh, my child. Oh, they are complaining my child cannot sit down. My child is always restless in class. My child cannot concentrate. So it doesn't show up until when the child reaches the classes where they now need to sit down for several hours. And the screen in this day and age is the number one reason why many kids struggle with focus. Even if they are using it to watch educative programs or learning apps, whatever, it negatively impacts your child's ability to focus. And it's a paradox, because you have them sitting like this, they're watching the screen, and you're like, but they are focusing on the screen. Why can't they focus off the screen? So parents even insult their kids by saying, yes, when it's TV, you sit there and concentrate. When it's book, you cannot concentrate. Not realizing that it is actually that focus they are giving to the screen that takes away their ability to focus now on their schoolwork. So regulating screen use, even outside of school time, is very important, because you're helping your child build focus. But aside from that, you also want to engage your child in certain activities that help enhance focus. Right? There are certain play, we call it play therapy, certain play activities that contribute, that enhance focus. Right? You want to use that as a way to complement, to support your child's classroom learning. So if you have a child who's addicted to screens, as soon as they come up from school, the TV is on, they just sit down there, they turn it off to do homework, and they're back on the screen. That is quietly sabotaging classroom learning. All right? It's taking away from their ability to focus when they get to the classroom, because they are spending too much time with the screen. They're spending too much time with the screen. It affects their ability to communicate. It affects their ability to concentrate. It affects their ability to regulate their emotions. It has a whole array of effects on children when used in excess. So I've said two things. All right. I'm not saying the screen is all bad. Screens, children need, there's learning that happens on the screen. But once it goes above the required amount of time, or the recommended amount of time, it becomes it becomes detrimental, regardless of what they are doing on the screen, because that's where the trap is. All right. You see, because they are doing ABC, they are doing this, it's okay for them to watch. They watch the whole evening. So I've said two things: regulate the amount of time your child is spending on the screen, and the timing of screen use in relation to bedtime. All right, the timing of screen use in relation to bedtime. Those are the two things that impact your child. If you don't manage them properly, will negatively impact your child's school performance. All right, it will negatively impact your child's school performance. Okay, so the screens are responsible for high, and the reason why they affect focus is because screens are very stimulating, especially when you don't choose the right programming, the right programs to watch. All programs are not equal, all cartoons are not equal, all educative content is not equal, and they are not all appropriate for certain age groups. I'm not going to the details of that, but some of them are excessively stimulating, even though your child is sitting still, but their brain is interpreting so many things at once. That's what distorts the focus. The fact that the brain is moving, there's so much going on. So it's been shown that programs they have what they call a high frame rate, right? They are so much is going on at once. It distorts focus. That's what keeps the children from being able to focus once they get off the screen. So you want to create a clear screen curfew. All right. You want to create a clear screen curfew, a time at which, if you're going to have them use screens during the school week, whether it's a tablet or it's your phone or it's whatever, laptop, TV, there has to be a clear-cut time from which, after that period, the screen goes off. The kids stop watching whatever it is that they're watching. It should be at least a minimum of 1 hour before bedtime. All right. But 2 hours is great too. So use screens intentionally. If they have to use the screen, then use it intentionally and also time it properly. All right. 1-2 hours on a school night. Don't go above that, because the more time they spend on the screen, the more it negatively impacts their ability to focus. And you want to replace, if you're taking off screen time, then provide proper replacements. All right. I always invite you, if you have never been to my online store, get onto our online store. You're going to see a range of resources that can actually help not just build focus, but as suitable alternatives that enhance cognitive function while your child is playing. All right, play. You can use play to shoot two birds with one stone. You can use it to have your child be entertained, but also, why not be entertained and also enhance skill development, enhance how the brain works, build intelligence, all of those things. For me, play should be able to bring all of these benefits to it, but not all play is equal. Some play doesn't bring, all of these things that I'm talking about. All right. The third thing that parents often overlook is emotional safety and connection. You don't realize that the quality of your interactions with your child during school time impacts how they learn in the classroom. There's some kids, where I live, here in Douala, where I live, I often say that Douala is like I don't know, like Lagos to Nigeria, or like the New York of the US in terms of the busyness. All right, it's a very fast-paced city, particularly during the week. You have parents who leave home as early as 6 a.m. when their kids have not even yet left for school. They've already left home. There are kids who are picked up by the school bus at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. All right, 5:30 a.m. the bus has already picked them up because they are going very far and because there's traffic. So it's hectic. So this means that the interaction between parents and their children is significantly reduced. And apart from that, besides just the reduced amount of contact between parent and child, the quality is also usually not the best, because the parents are exhausted, the children are exhausted, everybody's on edge, So that, without an environment of emotional safety at home, it impacts how a child learns in class negatively, unfortunately. So when a child is emotionally safe at home, they enter the classroom more confident. They enter the classroom and they're able to focus. There are times when teachers have reached out to parents to say, your child is not your child has changed. Your child is now withdrawn. Your child is quiet. And you look at, and by the time you want to investigate, you find out that the child has a problem at home. All right. So emotional safety is very important for effective learning in the classroom. So what happens at home doesn't stay at home. The child carries that with them to class. If the home is unstable, if there's a lot of emotional disruptions at home, the child is not emotionally safe, there's no connection with the parents, that's why you must remember that the most important piece on a child's academic journey is the parent. Their involvement, the amount of knowledge they have, how they're providing support, knowing what the child needs and being able to provide that for the child. All of those factors help a child learn effectively. So emotional safety enhances memory. It enhances learning. It enhances your child's willingness even to participate in the classroom. All right. It encourages risk taking. Kids who are emotionally safe, according to research, are more engaged more in the classroom because they feel safe. That's why emotional safety, even in the classroom, is also important. Because when the kids are being taught, think about a teacher that you had who was very harsh. All right. When the teacher asks a question, who wants to answer? Nobody wants to answer. Nobody wants to engage because they don't feel safe. So emotional safety from home, but also in the classroom, is very important for learning. All right. Now, a child feels close to their parents is less likely to shut down when they encounter challenges. They are more, willing to face challenges, to take on difficult tasks than a child who is not, who is not emotionally nurtured, who is not emotionally secure or safe. All right. So it's important that when you are during a school week, when the kids come back from home, the reason I call the after school period a critical window, because that's the time too when you need to be able to pour into your children. They've spent so much time away from home, around their peers, around, with strangers, commuting to school and back. A lot of time has been spent away from you. And when it comes to any relationship, the currency that is required to build a relationship is time. So make time to spend with your children in the course of the week. No matter how busy you are, that's why knowing what to do is very important, because many parents, the kids are there, they are there, but there's no connection still. Why? Because they don't know how to get into the child's world. I tell parents, when I say connecting with your child, it means you intentionally doing what it takes to be able to access your child's world. All right. When children know that their parents do care, when parents make the effort to be involved in their children's academic journey, the children are more enthusiastic about their learning. They are better able to take charge of their learning as opposed to when the parents are absent. That's why some kids start misbehaving in school and then they call the parents. Parents don't realize that when you are always absent, when you're significantly absent from your child's life and academic journey, the child can put up negative behavior just to get your attention. Because for a child, even negative attention is better than no attention at all. So the child will use their negative behavior to get you to pay attention. Because for a child, attention is not negotiable. They need attention. It's part of what they require to grow up in a wholesome way. So attention is not negotiable. If you haven't read my book, please do. All right. If you really want to understand dynamics of connecting with the child and why it's so important and why it's so significant, get my book. All right. Connected on Purpose. Go through it. Read it. You're going to learn so many things that you can do. The how of connecting with your child is detailed in this book. All right. And if you are not someone who reads books, then sign up for the course. All right. We have 2 courses that are actually onboarding right now. The 8th edition of the Building a Strong Bond with Your Child course is onboarding already. It's going to start in November. And the 1-year program, which is the most, the richest of all the programs we offer in the academy, starts on the 7th of December. Enrollment is currently going on. So just taking time, don't just ask every day, how was school today? For some parents, that's the only question they have ever asked their child. You're back, welcome. How was school today? That's it. What did you do in school? Nothing, mama. And the kids too are also very good at just giving you one-worded answers. How was school today? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. The parents, okay. And the parent moves on, But there's a lot that happened in there that you need to be able to get into. I tell parents often that you cannot guide a child whom you cannot see. And when we talk about seeing your child, not just seeing the child physically, but are you in their world? Are you a part of their process, of their journey? All right? Are you connected to your child to be able to, guide them along the way, help them through their child, help them navigate their child, because school is challenging. And there's a lot that sometimes kids go through stuff they don't even tell their parents. And you've been struggling and you've never told me. Why? Why couldn't you come to me with it? It's not straightforward as ABC. Sometimes a child, questions, will my parent blame me instead if I tell them this? Will my parent get angry with me instead? Even though how a child reasons is not the way an adult reasons. Sometimes they will hold on to their hurts, their struggles, because they're not sure whether they can trust you with it. That's why making the effort to be connected to your child positions you to be a guide for them on their journey. Because there's some things your child may need help with, but they'll not think to bring it to you. But when you make it a habit to always get in there, to be a part of your child's journey, all right, to ask the right questions. Tell me one thing that made you smile today. What was hard in school today? What was so hard for you in school today? What was difficult about your day in school? Did anything make you sad? What made you laugh? So there are different questions you can ask, not always, how was school today? Fine. How is your teacher? Fine. Did you eat all your food? Yes. So it's only just the one-worded answers you're getting. They're like, and no matter what I ask, the child just gives me one answer, and most parents just let it go. Then on the other hand, there are parents who are so busy. They are never there. The child comes out from school, you're not there. By the time you come out from work, a child is sleeping. In the morning, you wake up, the only interaction you have with your child is preparing them for school, and it's mostly transactional. Have you bathed? Have you brushed? Come and eat. Where's your bag? Have you done your homework? That's when you try to do all of those things. When did you make time to connect with your child? And then you don't realize that lack of connection can actually impact your child's school performance, because when children are connected to their parents, when their parents are positively present in their lives, it stirs their zeal for learning. The child goes to school confident. The child, when all is well at home, think about when you were a child. I don't know if you came from a home that was troubled. I came from a home that was troubled. All right. Whenever there was fire at home, that day, my day in school will be horrible. Nothing interests me. Break time, everybody's playing, I'm not interested. All right. So you see that what happens at home doesn't end there. The emotional climate of the home follows the child to school. All right. And we can't talk about emotional safety without talking about the morning chaos. I'm going to have a whole session where we're going to talk about how to fix or to silence or to structure or to get rid of your morning chaos, because morning chaos negatively impacts children in school. Many parents don't realize that all that yelling in the morning sets your child up for a day of lesser learning than it should have been if they left from a calm environment in the morning to go to school. One of the gifts you need to give your child every school day is that calmness, all right? Is that confidence. They leave home calm, they leave home relaxed, they leave home free of anxiety, because they're going to school is a place of anxiety for most kids already. So you don't want to add to that, all right? You don't want to add to that. So end the day with a predictable ritual. There should be something that you do with your kids every school night. Those who have taken any of my courses, you know that we teach you on how to do the things. We teach you the things that matter to your kids. Because most times parents, even when they're trying to connect, they only try to impose what they think, the child will like. And many times parents don't even know how to really relate with their children. Some parents don't know how to relate. This is not about you befriending your child. Please, if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. There's a whole chapter dedicated on that. All right. It's not about friendship with your child. It's about you knowing how to connect and access your child's world. They're not the same thing. All right. So end the day with a predictable ritual. Learn and find out some of the things that you can do to help you connect with your child on a daily basis, so they can be able to unburden themselves sometimes to you, share with you their struggles. Somebody's bullying me in school. There's some kids who are bullied for an entire school year and their parents never know about it. There's some kids who are sexually harassed by their teachers, and their parents never find out about it. I've actually had a parent reach out to me for this particular issue. An entire school year, the teacher kept making passes at her daughter, but the daughter never ever told her about it. Until the school year came to an end, then she brought it up. All right. So it's important to be a part of your child's world as they go to school. And finally, nutrition. We're going to end with that. Nutrition. Nutrition is one of those things that, we don't think Yeah, we know kids should eat well. They should eat fruits. They should eat balanced diet. But how is what you're feeding your child affecting how they're learning? You have to give it a thought. All right. Every year I always have a series where I put up different posts about feeding kids right for school. But what your child is eating is also important. I will start by addressing the picky eaters. There are kids who don't eat the regular food. Now, this is another nightmare for parents, right? But that's a situation that can be remedied. And I always tell parents that, picky eaters are groomed by their parents unintentionally. There are some mistakes that you're making without realizing that you are the one foiling the pickiness of your child. I know of kids who only eat bread and tea. Their parents reach out to me for help, and we, went to work and just bread and tea. If it's not bread and tea, the child will not eat it. I know kids who only eat fried plantain and juice. There are others who only eat hamburger or cake. So nutrition is so important that you're like, oh, but the child is eating, the child only wants to eat this, and the parent gets to the point where the child is the one dictating what they should or should not eat. Meanwhile, nutrition, what your child eats after school and in school as well, because what happens in that critical window period is that you also need to be planning, what is my child taking to school the next day, what your child is taking to school the next day, what your child has for breakfast, what your child even has for supper, when they have supper. All of those things impact what happens to school the next day. All right. Sometimes there are kids who are eating maybe at 8 p.m. They eat at 8 p.m. Eat what? Koki or fufu and arrow, and they go to sleep. That is a very heavy meal to eat just before bedtime. It affects the quality of the child's sleep. All right. Your child eats beans and just goes to bed. So the timing of the meals, what the child is eating, you have to be able to factor all of those things. Okay, so post-school nutrition is also important. Now there are some kids as well who have trouble falling asleep because they've spent their whole time after school eating sweet things, drinking a bottle of juice, eating biscuits. Now the thing with sweets, particularly these artificial sweets, is that they give what they call a sugar rush. Sugar rush, it makes the child to be hyperactive for a while. So when the child is in that hyperactive state, you say go to bed, it's almost impossible because the child will go there, and that until that sugar rush, that sugar peak goes down, the child may not be able to fall asleep. So now there are the other set of parents who spend their time, is the child must drink juice every day. So the child is drinking what, Fanta or this just before bed, and all of those things. It actually impacts how the child will sleep as well. So what the child is eating, the sugar content of their diet, because sugary snacks will give a sugar high but also a sugar crash. What they are taking to school the next day, what they are having for breakfast, whether or not they have breakfast, whether or not you spend your whole morning forcing them to eat. So there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about under this particular topic of nutrition. So what to serve, right? So it's important to offer balanced snacks, but also think about the amount of time it takes for that food to digest, especially if your child is preparing to go back to bed. So timing of the meal is important. Now I'm going to share with you something personal. One of the areas we used to struggle with in my home with my kids was the issue of them not wanting to eat, in the afternoon, and then them wanting to eat, you know, around bedtime, usually heavy meals, which is not appropriate. All right, we realized that the problem was coming from what they take to school and the fact that they would bring some of it back home and eat it at home when they should be having lunch, and then they will not be able to have lunch and then start having, the meal of the day later, close to bedtime, which affects how they sleep. So it's a whole cycle. All right, but basically, what I'm trying to say is what we finally resorted to doing was we came up with a rule. As soon as you enter the house, your lunchbox is kept in the kitchen. No matter what is inside, whether you didn't finish your yogurt or you didn't finish your whatever, it stays there until you eat the meal for the day, and then you can touch your snacks. All right. That ensured that they got their meal on time. Then in the evening, we usually give something light just before bed, and that's it for the day. And they sleep better that way. All right. So you come back from school, you have your rest time, you have the meal of the day. Usually it's a heavy meal. You have the meal of the day, then they have some time to do their homework, they have their outdoor play. That gives time for the meal to digest, and they're able to absorb all the nutrients properly and all of that. So timing is important. Nutrition is not just something, it's not just about giving a balanced diet, but the timing too matters. All right. What you're serving matters. The child's eating habits also matters, because there's some kids who are constantly in the hospital because they are not getting the right amount of nutrients they should get because they spend their time eating only sugary foods. So timing, rhythm, content, all those things are important. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. All right, I've gone through 5 points. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I don't know if we should have an entire session on just, the lunch pack, what to give your child, to take to school. It's a very controversial topic in some ways, because parents have different approaches to this particular topic. Some prefer to give cooked food, depends on how many hours the child is spending in school, depends on, whether the child has breakfast or not. So you have to take all those things into consideration when you're deciding what your child takes to school, what they eat after school, when they have their last meal, all of those things. But always remember, sugary foods close to bedtime are a big no-no, because they can affect your child's ability to be able to fall asleep and cause them to be hyperactive when they should be shutting down. All right. So any questions, feel free to ask at this point. So remember, 3 practical changes that you can start tonight. You can start from today. All right. Add outdoor playtime to your child's daily routine after school. No screen time, at least 60 minutes before bedtime. Limit also the amount of time your child spends on the screen, if possible. All right. I'm an advocate for take off screen time during the school week. If you can put that over the weekend, focus. There are other things your child can. They can read books. They can play with other things, play with other logic games and things that can build their mind. Have family time, interact with the family, because TV gets in the way of all of these things. At what age can a child start washing his clothes? Now that will depend on your training, right? But I would say now, from as early as 2 years, but I'm sure you say 2 years, washing clothes doesn't necessarily mean that the clothes have to be clean. It's about introducing the child, having the child start building the skills required. So it can start from as early as 2. 2-year-olds will always want to come and join you to do laundry. Don't stop them. All right? Don't stop them. Give them their own small bucket, give them a pair of socks or their pants, and they should be there doing whatever they're doing. So as the child progresses from that stage, then you can begin to, start putting a lot more attention onto whether it is clean enough and all of that. So in my home, all of my kids can wash their clothes. We have, even if you have to use the laundry machine, they still get to do the hand wash, because it's a very important. If they're not light, how do you get things washed if you're only used to the laundry machine? So from as early as 2, you start building the skill. In my home, nobody's exempted from that particular task. You get to wash your undies, you get to wash your uniform, you take care of your school things from head to toe at the end of the school day. But then for the smaller ones, now of course an adult's going to take it again and probably go over it to make sure it's properly clean. Sometimes we take it again and put it down in the laundry machine and we get it washed properly. All right. But for the bigger child, the one, I have a 10-year-old, that one, we're going to check it. If it's not clean, you have to, go over the areas that are not properly done. Because at that age, you need to be able to start perfecting the skill. So the goal will vary depending on the age of the child. But as early as possible. So as early as possible. All right. But the mother does everything for him at 9 years. Again, the seeds you're planting today, you're going to harvest tomorrow. All right. Most of the time, we do these things thinking that we are loving the child, not knowing that we are preparing a burden for ourselves for tomorrow. All right. Because the more dependent your child is on you, not only are you doing that child a disservice, but you're preparing yourself to carry a weight that you're probably not prepared for in the years to come. Because no one will want the 16-year-old boy to come out from school and dump their uniform for you to wash. You're going to start grumbling then. Your mates are washing. Why can't you wash? Because when I was 9, you were washing everything for me. One of cases of children that are not allowed to bring food to school. Every school has policies. Every school has policies. The school says no food, then no food. They eat whatever is available at school. I don't know what. Usually schools like that actually give food in school. So the child will have to eat what's available at school. All right. The child available. So is she on the forum? I hope she's on the forum. Get her on the forum. Most times, parents do these things, particularly parents who come from a background of a lot of struggle. They usually find themselves easily in permissive parenting. Most parents who grew up struggling, then maybe become well to do, usually find themselves becoming permissive parents, even though they went through very harsh parenting, because they want to, keep the child from every suffering that they encountered, to the point where they now begin to get in the way of the child's own development and skills and all of that, which is not beneficial for the child. But the parents, so usually whenever I'm working with parents, it's always important to understand the mindset behind the choices the parents make, because there's always a mindset. The first school of parenting any of us ever attended is our own childhood. How you were parented will influence how you're parenting. You're either trying to do exactly what was done to you, or you're trying to run away from it. All right. And running away from it does not mean you're going to get to the right place, because the parents who went through struggle end up trying to make the child too comfortable, and they end up spoiling the child. The parents who try to do exactly what their parents do end up still traumatizing the child the same way they were traumatized. You need to find the balance in the middle. All right. So it's not running away, and it's not exactly copying what was done, but there is the middle point that you have to balance it out. All right. It has to be a balance. Firmness and kindness. Firmness, and so she's being kind, she's being loving and all of that. Good intentions. But she doesn't realize the long-term consequence of what she's doing. And that's usually why I do what I do. I do what I do because many parents don't, they are stuck in the now. They cannot connect what they're doing now with what is coming later. Just look around you. The number of scammers we have coming up, the number of children who are missing their way. Their parents had good intentions. They all have good. That's why I said knowledge is crucial on any parent's journey, because what you don't know, you can't make decisions that are that work for your child when you don't even know. When you're parenting in the dark. All right. So she has good intentions, but probably she just needs to realize that what she's doing will come back to affect the child and even herself negatively in future. All right. Okay, thank you so much, dear parents. It's been a wonderful session. I hope that you've learned something and are ready to make some changes that will be able to make your mornings a little more easier. Well, I think in the next session we are going to look at, either here or on Facebook, we're going to look at how to structure a smooth morning routine. There's nothing better than having a peaceful, smooth sailing school morning, both for the parent and for the child. All right, we're going to have to look at that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Mama Fonje. We have so many of you here. I'm not going to mention everyone, but thank you so much for tuning in. Please share, encourage someone else to watch so that they can learn something new as well. All right, I'll see you again next Thursday. Take care and bye.